Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Shabbos Daf Pei Gimel is in the middle of a discussion about the Tumah that an Avodah Zarah, an idol, carries. The Gemara will spend 3/4 of the Daf discussing this. It will have three issues. First of all, we are in the middle of a machlokes between Rabbah and Rabbi Elazar as to what a machlokes the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva is about, as to whether or not an idol has carrying tumah. That discussion will take us for a while. Then we'll have a discussion about pieces that break off an idol if they're tummy. Then we'll have a discussion about the minimum size of an idol, whether or not that's tummy. That'll take us to the Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses the tumah of a ship, and that'll be the rest of the Gemara from there. So let's remind ourselves what we're in the middle of before we begin the Gemara up to now. We are in the middle of a machlokes between Rabbah and Rabbi Elazar as to what is the machlokes Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva about the tumah of a Avodah Zarah. So first of all, there are three levels of tumah that could possibly be discussed here. The highest, the least level of tumah, the most simple, most basic level of tumah is what's called tumas sheretz, and that's if you touch the sheretz, contact tumah, that is metameyu, even if you touch, that is metameyu if you touch the object. That's tumas sheretz, that's the tumah that a sheretz, a dead rodent, has. A slightly harder level to achieve is tumas nevela. A nevela, that's the carcass of an animal, is metameyu not only if you touch it, but even if you carry it without touching it. We'll call that the second level of tumah, or carrying tumah. That does not apply to shortzim, it only applies to nevela. And the third and highest level is even if you're not actually carrying the tumah, it's just suspended above you or below you. That's tumah of being above or below. That applies only to a zav or to a nida, doesn't apply to a nevela or to a sheretz. Now the question is, where does tumas avodah zarah fit in? So I had a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva as to whether carrying tumah applies or not. Now the simple pshat is Rabbi Elazar's pshat, that's talking about the middle level, the tumah that a nevela has, carrying tumah. Rabbi Akiva says an avodah zarah does have carrying tumah, and the Rabbanan say it does not. However, Rabbah disagrees. Rabbah says no, that is not the case of the machlokes at all. The case of the machlokes is the third level, tumah above and below. That is where there's a machlokes, but everybody agrees that carrying tumah, the second level, does apply to an avodah zarah. So now the Gemara has a couple of questions over here. First of all, the Gemara asks to have a brisa. I have two brises, one after another, which seems to not fit with Rabbah's opinion. Again, Rabbah had said that the machlokes was about the third level, but the middle level, everybody agrees, is tamei. Okay, so first of all, I have a brise that says as follows: a avodah zarah has tumah like a sheretz, and anything used to serve an avodah zarah also has tumah like a sheretz. And Rabbi Akiva says no, it is tumah like a nida. So here you see clearly that the Rabbanon say that it has tumah like a sheretz. It has level 1 tumah, contact tumah, but it does not have nevela tumah, carrying tumah. So the Gemara says this is not a problem. We already had this language in the Mishnah before, and Rabbah said when it says that it has tumas sheretz, it means that it has tumas sheretz in the sense that you can't go all the way to tumas zav and zava. It doesn't go that far. It doesn't have above and below tumah. It has a compromise between the two, between tumas and nevela, which is the middle level, tumas nevela, carrying. Okay, fine. That's that brisa. Now we have another one. And this brisa, we're going to have the Gemara will quote the brisa. Rabbah will say the brisa doesn't make sense anyway. We have to interpret it, and the Gemara reinterprets the brisa according to Rabbah, according to Rav Elazar, and then Rav Ashi has his own shot on the brisa altogether. First of all, what are the words of the brisa? So the brisa refers to a nachri, a nachris, an avodah zarah, and things used to serve an avodah zarah. And it says that it's a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva whether they have carrying tumah, tumas hesed, of course. It says they are tamei, but whether they have carrying tumah or not is a machlokes Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva. So we clearly see that the case of the machlokes is about carrying tumah, the middle level. How could Rabbah say that everybody agrees that that's tamei, and the machlokes is about the third level? So Rabbah answers and he says this brisa does not make sense. It is obviously a mistake, and I'll prove to you that it doesn't make sense. We have to reread it, and once we're rereading it, I'll reread it in a way that fits with me, and Rabbi Lazar will reread it in a way that fits with him. What's the problem with the brisa? It says that the nachri and the nachris do not have tumah other than contact. They do not have carrying tumah at all. It's not true, because we know that midrabanan, a nachri and a nachris have the halacha of a zav. If they have the halacha of a zav, then they have all three levels of tumah. So how could this brisa say that they don't have anything other than the first level of tumah? Obviously, it's a mistake. So you have to reread it, and I'll read it my way, and I'll say that you read it as follows: the nachri, the nachris, the avodah zarah, and the service items all have tumah. The nachri and the nachris have tumah like a zav and a zava. It has all three levels. As far as the avodah zarah itself, so that's a machlokes between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva in the third level, whether it has tumas zav or zava or not, or does it only, right? The Chachamim say that it does not have; it only has the first two levels of tumah, and Rabbi Akiva says no, it has all three levels of tumah. That's how Rabbah understands the brisa. Rabbi Elazar agrees that you have to change the brisa. You have to say that the nachri and the nachras themselves have all three levels of tumah, but he'll place the machlokas in the middle level. He'll say that in the middle level is where the Chachamim and Rabbi Akiva argue whether there is tumah on the avodah zarah itself. Is there a carrying tumah? But certainly everybody will agree that there is no third level of tumah on the avodah zarah itself. That is reserved for the nida and the zav. Now, Rav Ashi says this is all well and good, but there's another problem with the brisa, and therefore you have to reread it all together. The brisa says, if you look at it carefully, it says about the nachri and the nachris, it says they are tamei, but the things they do not transmit tumah to things which carry them. Okay, we reinterpreted that to mean that they do transmit tumah to things which carry them. But why do you have to tell me that they are tamei? The whole brisa wouldn't begin if they weren't tamei. You could just tell me the rest of it, and I would know that they themselves must be tamei. So he says, therefore you have to reread this all together. When it says they, it doesn't mean that they are tamei. It means that there's two types of transference of tumah by carrying, and that's who's carrying who. The nachri and the nachris are carrying, or are they being carried? Those are two separate things. We are introducing the concept of tumah that's transmitted by the tamei thing or person carrying a tahar object. Aha, that's a new halacha. That halacha coincides with the third level. That's the third level tumah. That's the tumah of the zav. Why? Because this halacha only applies to a zav. A zav is the only one where we find the concept that if a tamei person carries an object without touching it, that he transmits tumah to that object. Therefore, what the brisa means to say is as follows. This halacha of carrying a object and making it tamei, that's a special halacha for a zav. That applies also to the nachri and the nachris because they have a status of a zav midrabanan, and as to whether or not it applies to an avodah zarah, that's a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. This obviously goes with Rabbah's pshat because Rabbah is the one who says that the machlokes is on the third level, and there's tumah of carrying where the zav is carrying another object is a third level tumah. So therefore, Rav Ashi reinterprets the Mishnah, the brisa, and it's referring to this halacha of the zav or the goy or the avodah zarah carrying another object, and he learns like Rabbah that is where the machlokes is. Okay, now the Gemara has a question. How is it possible for an avodah zarah to carry anything? Avodah zarah is an inanimate object. It cannot carry, and you never find that this halacha of transmitting tumah to something you're carrying applies to an inanimate object. It can't carry. So the Gemara says, no, you do find such halacha. You do find a situation in which you can transmit this tumah without actively carrying, and that's if you have a zav and a collection of food and drink on a gigantic scale. So the Mishnah, there is a Mishnah that says that if the zav weighs down, then he is causing the scale to lift. He is supporting the scale, he is supporting the food in the air, and therefore it becomes tamei. If the food and drink is heavier, then they do not become tamei. So you see here that the zav can transmit tumah through carrying, even though he's not actively carrying it. He's not even holding it. He's just causing it to be in the air. So therefore, the avodah zarah also can do that, even though it's an inanimate object. It could cause this thing to be suspended in the air, and it can actually cause tumah for that as well. Okay. Now, the Gemara finds another brisa, and the Gemara wants to know whether it fits with the Rabbanan or with Rabbi Akiva. according to this latest understanding that Rav Ashi introduced us. The Brisa says as follows: this halacha, that a tamei person can transmit tumah to something he's carrying, only applies to a zav. Nothing else in Kol Torah Kula has such a halacha. So Gemara says, according to Rav Ashi's interpretation, that was the case of the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. So this Brisa must be holding like the Chachamim, because according to Rabbi Akiva, an avodah zarah could transmit tumah that way. So Gemara says, no, it can fit with Rabbi Akiva also. What does it mean when it says only a zav can do that? It means a zav and anything that's learned out of zav. Avodah zarah is linked to zav with psukim. It's learned out of zav, and therefore it could be included when it says zav. It means to say that there's no other independent sugya of halacha that has this din. The Gemara now introduces its next shaila about avodah zarah tameh, which is if the avodah zarah is in pieces. What's halacha? That's not that it's broken, then it's for sure not tameh. The question is when it's disassembled. So there's two versions of the question. They both remain unresolved, but Ruchama Bar Goya's version is that we are referring to an idol which cannot be put back together by a do-it-yourselfer. It requires an expert. And the question is, even though it's in pieces, but it's whole. All the pieces are there. So is that called broken or not? The second version is no. We're referring to a case where anybody could put it back together. The question is that called broken or not? If you could put it back together, but right now it's in pieces, is that called broken or not? And therefore, is it a tummy or not? And the question remains unresolved. Teiku. The Gemara now discusses the smallest size that an avodah zarah can be and still be tummy. So the Gemara says, Rav Achdavai asked, what if you have a avodah zarah that's less than the size of an olive, less than a concise? What's the halacha? So the Gemara first wants to know, what is he asking? Is he asking whether or not it's included in the Isser to derive benefit from an idol? That can be, because even if it's smaller than an avodah zarah, it's still an idol. Even if it's smaller than a concise, it still counts as an idol. How do you know? Because there was an idol called Zavuv, which is a fly. And a fly is smaller than an olive, and therefore it was very much included in the Isser of having any hana from an avodah zarah. How do you know that Zvuv was a real idol? So Gemara says there's a brisa, which explains the psukim, discussing when after the passing of Gidon, the Shefet, that the people went and were avodah zarah. So it says, "Vayisimu lehem Baal Bris Elokim," and they made the Baal Bris as a master. And the brisa says that refers to Zvuv. And what they used to do was they kept a little statue of the Zvuv in their pocket, and whenever they thought about it, they hugged it and they kissed it and they had it with them all the time. So you see, it's a real avodah zarah. It's not anything else. So obviously, the Isser of having an applies. So what then was Rav Achdavai's question? Can you have an avodah zarah which is less than a kizayis? His question was, is it tamei? The issue is as follows. We know that a sheretz, the minimum size to be tamei, is the size of a lentil, very small. However, a mace, a corpse, the minimum size is the size of a kizayis. Question is, where does an avodah zarah fit in? Like a sheretz, because it's both called shakets, or like a corpse, which is connected to, as we'll see in a minute. So Gemara says it's like a corpse, because we have a brisa that says that in the days of Yeshua Melech, when he was destroying the avodah zarahs, he burned one and says he threw it upon the graves of the people who had worshipped it. So therefore you see that it's connected to graves, has the same halacha as graves, and both have the size of a corpse. Okay, the Gemara says now, if you go back to the machlokes before, so we had the opinion of the Chachamim that had connected avodah zarah to sheretz and connected it to nida. It was connected to sheretz in the sense that it doesn't have tumah of carrying. It's connected to nida in the sense that if it's disassembled, it's still matami. Now, it's also connected to mace, which is a middle level of tumah, like nevela. How so? Because it has the size of a mace, it has the size of a kizayis. So the Gemara says, hold on a second. How do you know that you should connect to all those three things to teach you a kula? That it doesn't have tumah of carrying, it doesn't have tumah if it's disassembled, and it's not matami unless it's at least the size of a kizayis. Maybe do the opposite. It's like a sheretz in that it's matami in a very small size, like the size of a lentil. It's like a nida that it has tumah of being above or below, like a nida does, and it's connected to a mace in the sense that it has tamas oil. If it's in the same room as you, it's mitame you. So the Gemara says, listen here, the tumah of an avodah zarah is really only derabanan. All the psukim which we brought so far are smachtas, they're hints, but it's really a rabbinic origin, and we always go l'kula in an issue of a derabanan. This takes us to the end of this Gemara. Now we begin the next Mishnah, which discusses the tumah of a ship. The Mishnah says a ship cannot become tamei. It's not mekabel tama because it's linked to the sea. It says derech oniya b'leiv yam. The way of a ship is through the sea. So just like the sea is not mekabel tama, a boat can also not ever be mekabel tama. The Gemara explains, I would not otherwise need the pasuk to tell me that a boat goes in the sea. I know that the reason that it's there is to tell me that the two are linked as far as hilchos tama. Now the Gemara is going to quote a brisa which gives a different source that boats are not mekabel tama, and the Gemara will give us two situations in which the two sources come up with differing halachas, and then we'll get a bit of musar. So we have a brisa which goes Hanan, and he says no. The reason that a ship is not mekabel tama has nothing to do with being linked to the sea. It's because it's too big. And we have a drasha that connects a sack and a wooden container. Just like a sack has to be small enough to be able to be carried full or empty, any wooden container has to be able to be carried full or empty. Now you cannot possibly carry a full boat on dry land. Therefore, it's not mekabel tama, it's too big. Okay, the Gemara says, what's the difference between these two sources? That ship is linked to the sea, that's a chachamim in our Mishnah, or Hanania, that it's too big. Gemara says that there are two differences. First of all, what if the ship is made out of some material other than wood? What if it's made out of cheres? So that's not linked to sack, and therefore it does not have the halacha that it's not tamei if it's too big, and therefore any size ship, if it's made out of cheres, is mekabel tama according to Chananya, but it's not mekabel tama according to the Chacham because it still goes in the sea and is compared to the sea. Another difference is a boat, a small boat like a raft or a canoe, one that you use to sail along the Yarden River. So there, it's not too big. You are able to fill it up and carry it. And therefore, according to Chananya, it would be mekabel tama, and according to Chachamim, it would not, because it still travels in the sea or the river, which is also the same. Now, the Gemara says that Reb Chanina ben Akavia came and explained to us why there's a brisa that says, there's a Mishnah that says that a boat that goes in the Jordan River is mekabel tama. The reason is because people fill it up, they load it up on land, and then they carry it into the water. Okay, now the Gemara says you should never be absent from the Beis Medrash for one moment, because you might miss a halacha. This Mishnah was known for years, and we never knew the reason for it until Reb Chanina ben Akavi came along and said that that's the reason, because it's in accordance with the halacha, with the opinion that the imperviousness of a boat to tumah is derived from its size, and this is too small. Now, on a similar note, the Gemara says, Rav Yonasan says, you should never be out of the Beis Medrash, even on the moment that you're about to die, because it says Torah Adam Kiyamas Ba'al. This is the Torah, a man who dies in the tent. You should be in the Beis Medrash until you die. Similarly, the Gemara says Reish Lakish learns out of that same pasuk that you only are successful in Torah if you kill yourself over it, like it says Torah Adam Kiyamas Ba'al.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.